So, I've heard some folks say that post-apocalyptic role-playing game campaigns aren't always very long. They're sometimes quite short and brutal. But I just wanted to share what happened in our campaign as we've come to a bit of a halt now, a possibly permanent hiatus because life happens and people get busy with things and stuff. So we had 23 sessions between March and October, and it was pretty cool, and I'd just like to do a little video about the stuff we got up to. Now, we started off with Dead in the Water, a Tim Snyder adventure. There will be spoilers as I discuss these adventures, and I ran this one with my Basic Fantasy group last year, as I've mentioned, and it's a really neat adventure and gives you a nice little fishing village which can be your starting base. So the characters are all residents of Narleen, the fishing village in Dead in the Water, and they lived on the coast of the Rainbow Sea, and they had Captain Laird, who was a seaweed plantiant who could drive them about in his boat, and they had what is his name? I keep getting his name wrong. Zorak, I think is Zorak, or I kept saying Zorik, or sometimes I'd say Xeroc, but Zorak is the head of the village, and he could send them on missions for the betterment of the community, and that was really good fun. And of course they blew up the island naturally. The next we went to the Goats of Travail, so that led us having a little village nearby, so they sent out the seekers to that village to establish relations with them, and it turned out the village had a problem because a couple of people had disappeared, and so they asked the party if they would help and go and find them, which they did, and they also had lots of crazy fights with goat spiders, and that also led to them finding a maglev network, or the start of it anyway, and so that opened up the world around them, and they ended up travelling to the Sky High Tower, which is the adventure in the core rulebook, written by Jim Wampler, and they discover a ancient building of the ancients, which is full of interesting technology and beetles and all sorts of crazy things, and so that led to them trying to establish a little satellite community at the end of the maglev track around this Sky High Tower, where they met a robot who was very good at gardening and could create produce for a blossoming community that they could establish there. The next one I did was one I'd written as they were heading back from the Sky High Tower. I can't remember why they didn't go on the maglev. There must have been a reason, but they were heading back in their flying car that they'd found, and it developed engine trouble and went down over this wasteland where they were attacked by a couple of giant scorpions because, Damnation Alley, and they were picked up by a robot on a super fast car who took them back to a base of the ancients, and the idea was based on Forbidden Planet. So I rummage through my notes. I do write a lot of notes. Sometimes I write more notes than the actual adventure. So this was Assault on the Sky High Tower notes, after which we did the Maelstrom of Mortius. Now we have all the monsters here that they fought. This was the map. There we go. There was a scientist here. He thought he was studying a base that was built by aliens. He discovered, well, the players discovered that he actually wasn't. It was built by humans, human scientists. So that undid all his research, and it turns out he was a Hard Light hologram who'd gone a bit crazy, and yep, the monster from the id arrived, and that was great fun as the players ran away from it into the sort of reactor up here, and lured it in and destroyed it that way. So that was my first effort at writing a Mutant Crawl Classics adventure. Gosh, I did write a lot of notes, didn't I? I used the stats for the creature from the id as an invisible stalker from D&D 3rd edition as well. I might. Wow, this is huge. It just went on and on. The following adventure, they got back to the village to find that a lot of refugees were coming in from the east, from the nearby swamp area, and that brought in the Bane of the Ancients, and I really enjoyed this one. I loved the way it was written. It just lays it out so well that it makes it really easy to run, and that was awesome. And that was a really fun adventure with some crazy plant monsters, which they fought as the bulk of the monsters were trying to attack their village, and they were able to defeat them in the end. Really love this one. From that we went to A Fallen Star for All. Now I kind of regret how I ran this because of the way I've written Maelstrom of Mortius, the Forbidden Planet thing. The idea of a mad scientist father with their child, which I'd used in Forbidden Planet or Maelstrom of Mortius. There's kind of a bit of that here, so I felt I don't really want to run the same theme again, but I ran the first part of the adventure as written. We lost a character here, tough times. After the first adventure, each player had 2 characters, but here we lost another one, and that was quite upsetting. Oh well. And but inside I kind of redid it a bit in order to fit it into our sort of 3-hour maximum time frame. So I made the adventure a little bit simpler and redid the map a little bit on some crazy isometric paper. But yeah, just made it a little bit simpler and made the big bad a little bit different. It was like a giant head of a Terminator in the end, but that's the way I did it anyway. I regret. It was a shame. I wish I had run it as written, and I felt I did it a disservice. But I just didn't want to use the same sort of themes as I'd used in the other adventure. Now after that, we went to the Rats of Gim, and I thought I would incorporate the village in here. I would use Green Village from Gamma-World 4th edition. So if I can find it. Doing a lot of waffling today, sorry about that. Green Village. There we go. And so that if our characters came from down here, where the wildlands here, the Rainbow Sea, I sort of plopped it down here, and they travelled up here. I set A Fallen Star for All at Magma Tap, which is just here. So that sets us firmly in the Gamma world, up beyond Dayton, the ruins thereof, and now they're in Green Village. And the Rats of Gim was great because it's full of wonderful, crazy stuff. I like Erica Dawson's, I always do that, Erica Barlow's adventures, and this one is packed full of stuff. You can just, it's so much things in here that you can pick and choose what you want to do, and any little bits you want to leave out for time. It worked very well. They had great fun with the dragon. and yes, they heard a rumour about another creature in here, but which they didn't actually come across, but they became a bit fascinated with it, and so yeah, that factored into their adventures later on. After this, as they had impressed the Bonapartist commander at Green Village, he asked them to help them with investigating evidence of a powerful AI to the south near Dayton, and so they headed down there. This was another one of the ones I wrote, the Cipher of the Ancients. They came across some coyote men at a helicopter base, and they're obsessed with this helicopter. The coyote men were, they worshipped it because they were, you know, they sort of worshipped technological things from the ancients, and they're only capable of saying one word, so I had to communicate to the players just with the word whoop, and that was fun. So they got on okay with the coyote men. They didn't have a fight with them or anything. It was great. They headed to the hidden silo, where it's always awkward when one of your characters can fly, one of your player characters. So I invented these things called bile crows, which are a lot like turkey vultures in that they can spit bile at enemies. So these giant crows came flying down to attack the flying character, and yeah, that was fun. So they got to the bunker. They were able to find their way inside the force field eventually, and discovered this ancient computer, which was actually the computer that E.T. built to phone home. It was still functioning, and it was called Tex, and it knew of another computer. As I was working Gamma World into it, I used Hank. I mentioned Hank from Gruesome Aft Base, which is a place you're not recommended to actually use. You're supposed to just have it there as a rumour or something. But I thought I'll just. They asked if there were any other AIs that Tex was in touch with, and I said, oh yes, he's in touch with Hank to the west, to a base over there. And unfortunately, whenever you make an offhand remark like that, your players will often seize upon it and be determined to investigate. So that's what they wanted to do after the Cipher of the Ancients. So that led me to a heck of a conundrum on how to do that. They headed over to Moonsea, where the rabbit people are, and with the hopes of trying to get into Gruesome Aft Base. Now they were flying there in the helicopter they'd found, and they flew over Moonsea, and I was hoping that they would be flagged down by the Bonapartist sentries there, and they were, because I thought, well, if they just head here, they're going to get shot down by the war robots. So they were flagged down, and it was explained to them how dangerous it was. They met a sort of renegade commando of the rabbit people called Bigwig, you know, from Watership Down, and he was a sort of a Rambo character, and he told them how they could get into Gruesome Aft Base, and that led me to another conundrum, if I can say that. So I thought, well, if they go in through the Hive of the Overmind, they break into this ant base, and they're somehow able to find their way through and get further in to the outskirts of Gruesome Aft Base. So they did that, and then I thought, well, now we're in a proper pickle. I'd been foreshadowing some events from Home Before the Sky Falls as a possibility of leading into that, but when it came to it, I thought, I'm going to circumvent this, and Hank is going to ask them to get on a secret maglev from Gruesome Aft Base, which via a secret door reconnected with the maglev network they already had access to. It took them beyond the Sky High Tower, beyond Travail, or Traverse Valley, where the goat spiders were, and far beyond that into a desert area where Hank required them to find a special artifact which he could use the knowledge from to defeat the war robot he was in a sort of stalemate with, because the war robot had control over Gruesome Aft Base and Hank had control over certain systems, so he was able to keep the war robot sort of in check. So they travelled to the museum at the end of time, another Jim Wampler adventure, which was really good fun. So instead of finding what they find in the adventure as written, they found the data orb of Metakind. So they were able to take that back to the Maglev, and I think they may have returned to Narleen at that point. No, they didn't. They Hank let them out near a place called Foultown on the way back to Gruesome Aft Base. So they exited there, and I had the idea of Hank turning into the computer and making lots of clones in order to repopulate Gruesome Aft Base and turn it into, well, Gamma Complex in this case. So that's what I thought he would do. They got out at Foultown, and I sort of set this adventure there. Another Tim Snyder adventure, big fan. And this was quite a horror story, really. And there were a few, when there's sort of bits of body horror stuff, I tend to skip that because I don't particularly like it at all. But a really good fun horror adventure there. Two of the players were unable to play in that one, so they were sort of unconscious and kidnapped by these baddies, and they were rescued by the players who were in the game. And so after we did that, we went to Incursion of the Ultra Dimension. So they were called back from Green Village, where they'd returned to, by the goat manimal who they'd rescued from the Goats of Travail adventure. He'd since become a seeker, and he called them back and told them that there'd been a terrible disaster because the village had been hit by a tidal wave and attacked by these really strange creatures. So we went through Incursion of the Ultra Dimension. Now this is a wonderfully bonkers adventure. The Retreat of Delirium. Very weird map in this. The difficulty is they can, just by chance, the players can get to something really significant, and so your adventure comes very near its conclusion very quickly if things go as they go. And so they did. They found one of the key areas they needed to find. There's sort of guinea pig people in here, and they didn't even meet them, which was a shame because I thought the guinea pig people were cool. So heading towards the end of the session, I thought, well, if they found one important place, they may as well find another important place to shut the adventure down and finish it off. So I shifted the power plant area nearer to where they were. One of my players is really good at mapping, and so they had a timer to get out, and he was able to guide them out very quickly indeed, so they were perfectly safe, and they managed to get out there. That was that one. Then I did another one of mine, which was the Cave of the Robo-Crabs. Now I quite enjoyed writing this one. Here we go. Just not terribly complicated, but quite fun. Big robot crabs. There's a ooze monster in here. There's fiery pit here that they had to get through. There are all sorts of creatures in here that were like the cockroach people in Assault on the Sky High Tower, but slightly different. They were quite deadly. They almost killed one of the party. There's a slug monster here which they didn't find. In here was a damaged robo crab which wasn't crazy, and so they were actually able to befriend it and get it to help in the battle with the final robo crabs. And as our session still had a bit left, so I quickly wrote a boss. They could go in this pool here, go through a cave and find in another cave a massive RoboCrab and have a final epic battle with the queen of the RoboCrabs. So yes, that was fun. After that we had something falling from the sky, so they went to investigate. I think it was a strange light in the sky, a strange beacon. So they went to the Tower Out of Time Michael Curtis adventure, and that was really good fun. I really enjoyed that. I'll show you the crazy map here if I can. Here we go, that was good. Yeah, and after this I let them get away with there's a trap in here which is quite deadly, and I sort of nerfed it a bit. They should have blown up really, but I allowed them to detect it, even though they at one point were having no precautions at all and just going for it. But yeah, they should have really blown up, but never mind. I do have a tendency to nerf things sometimes, and I wish I wouldn't, because you know, the dice roll what the dice roll. But hey, when at the end of this adventure they saw this thing that had been shooting through the sky, and it landed, and the next session started with this white light. You remember at the end of Akira, this huge white light sort of expanding, and once they went through it they were zapped into this other dimension, the Star Wound of Abaddon, if you pronounce it like that, I don't know. But this was quite epic. It took 2 sessions. I sort of I truncate the adventures a little bit to fit into our 2.5 to 3 hour sessions, but this one had to go over 2 sessions because it was huge, and it's in 2 distinct parts really. So they had the trekking through the horrible wasteland to try and get to the garden, and then the next session was dealing with the garden itself and the Cathedral of the Comet and all that stuff. Very cool adventure. I played this in our DCC group in 2020 before our group sort of went on hiatus, and so I was very interested in running it, and it was great. I quite enjoyed that. It was, well, I really enjoyed that. It's very dark, but and as a consequence of it being quite dark, I then wrote well, Doom of the Nautilus. It wasn't, that one wasn't too dark. Set on a nuclear submarine. Here we go. Doom of the Nautilus. Can I find my funky map? No, I don't think I can. Yeah, this was, here it is. It's sort of a set on a nuclear submarine, and they were able to find lots of crazy toys here, and they were able to rescue the sailors who had been kept safe. The captain had overloaded the reactor in order to create a stasis field in the bulkhead where the sailors were kept, so that they could survive until the submarine was rescued. So they were able to find over 100 sailors here, and then they then had a nuclear submarine to play with. So that's going to be fun. Yeah, I really made life complicated for myself with that. They have access to nuclear warheads now. What could possibly go wrong? So after that crazy one, we did Evil of the Ancients, another Michael Curtis, and quite a dark one, very dark one. They started going crazy as they this thing. It was to the north of where their home in the wildlands, and they found this Minerva station. And yeah, the aliens started to send them crazy, and so that was quite dark, that one. So it was after this one that I decided to lighten the mood. They wanted to go back to find, spoiler alert, the kill kitten from the Rats of Gim. One of the characters had become obsessed with finding this kitten. I asked the player if he wanted to roll up another character, as everybody else had to. He said yes, and they went to find the kill kitten, and this character was the first one to try to stroke the kill kitten. That's why it's called the kill kitten. Okay, so he didn't last very long, but after that they where did they go? They had a little adventure called The Restless Knight, which is a swords and wizardry adventure, which I found on Drive-Thru, and that was really fun. It was very silly, and it was sort of influenced by EastEnders and all sorts of silly things at this pub. So after that we went to a bit of classic Gamma World, which I found really difficult to run because I couldn't find the focus of it really. You know, every adventure sort of has a point. This is more of establishing a base thing, which wasn't where they were at in the campaign at that time. So I got a bit confused on how to deal with that. So anyway, after this, I didn't run the second part where it's in space on the space station. I used Creep Scrag Creep instead by Stephen Newton, and that was really good fun. So that was the one I ran after that. It was at this point that the burnout was really kicking in, and I was really starting to struggle, and we were, you know, losing players to real life stuff happening, schedules changing, all that stuff. So I finished the last 2 sessions with a couple of adventures from Tom Wilson in Gamazine, and one was the Kamaxis refinery, where they found a place to refine the oil they'd got from the robo-crabs, and after that they went to a place called Ghoul Town, where they met some ghouls who were being harassed by the Genetic Purity bods, Knights of Genetic Purity from Gamma World. So I was going to try and bring that in as a possible future thread, but after that the Dark Knights adventure, it sort of came to an end, the campaign did, and I may have run the Warlords of Atos after that, because I mentioned Atos in the adventure, setting that up. But that was how it went, all 23 sessions, as shown here on this expensive data sheet. So that was 2021 for my campaign and the Terra Nova crawlers. So previously, you know, we had 12 sessions of Basic Fantasy last year, and this year 23 sessions of Mutant Core Classics with this other group. So cool. That was how it went. That was sort of my thoughts behind some of it and how it came together, and how sometimes it didn't come together. It was a bit of a mess. I was very burnt out by the end because a lot of the sessions were like weekly, and I think weekly is just a fraction too much, especially when I was back in the office and lost a lot of time out of my day. So yeah, hey ho, that was it. Mutant Core Classics. A really fun game, but you need something else. I used quite a bit of Gamma World. I needed some bits of rules from DCC, like one character wanted to dual wield, so I looked at the rules for that from DCC. It's a supplement to other things. I'm not wild about rummaging through fumble charts and critical charts, but you know, the fights can feel quite epic, so that's quite fun. But a great game as long as you use it alongside something else, I think. That's just my thought on it, but really good fun, and I'm so glad I got to run so many adventures from it.